welcome everyone to this year's Fans Forum, which is becoming a regular occurrence now. Now it definitely is now. Richard said we're going to do it every year. So thanks for coming. It's a fairly open meeting, as you know. I'm just really going to say a few words now. Steve's going to say a few words, and that's really just to get the ball rolling. It's nothing important really. From a club's perspective, it's fantastic that so many of you turned up tonight, because that shows that you're obviously interested in the club and the welfare of the club. We're working hard to take the club forward, as you know, in terms of generating income, putting on events and everything else. So all I would say is, ever so quickly, if anyone could help in that instance, that would be great. Any ideas and the implementation of those ideas would be fantastic. And I'm going to try, it's a bit short notice, but the season's creeping up on us a little bit, is if anyone can or knows of anyone that would be willing to help out Saturday or Sunday to do some work on the ground. The tannoy hut needs clearing out and kind of revamping with I think paint's the easiest thing, it's always nice and clean. But the tannoy hut, possibly the walls if there's enough people here. We've got some boards that we need to take down because they're not sponsoring the football club anymore and not likely to. So if there's 5 or 6 or however many people that can help out the weekend, if you could just maybe send me an email or see me afterwards, and I'll try and get a list of jobs together concurrent with the amount of people that we've got that can help out, or spread the word. That'd be fantastic. So I'm going to pass you over to Steve, because he's the most important man here really, to talk to you about the football so far.
Thank you. Yeah, just thought I'd give you a little brief overview of the time we've had since the end of the season, just to bring you up to date with it. I'm sure you've all followed the website and Twitter and everything and seen the signings we made, but going back to the end of last season, the most important thing for me was that we're a squad that has grown. I remember sitting, I think we were in the Skittle Rally this time last year, and saying that, you know, after a couple of years of struggle in the Southern League, we needed to obviously push on and push forward, and I felt that we had a squad that was able to do that, and I think that the mid-table position probably justifies, you know, where we were at that particular time. So, you know, as the season come to an end, I was busy trying to speak to the players that we wanted to keep for this year, and pleased to say that the majority of them, or certainly all the ones that I wish to keep, have signed so far. So that's good news. And then it was about looking at the gaps of where we could try and improve us again. So, and it's probably the hardest bit now, from going from a mid-table side to a side that's going to try and challenge up towards the playoff is a big step. And you know, to make a big step, sometimes you've got to take a few gambles, and that's probably a plan that we're going to use quite a bit over the next coming season. So we needed to get a couple of experienced players in that have played at higher level. And one area that we looked at, although we had 4, in my opinion, good strikers, we were a goal or 2 short, and it certainly showed in certain games where we needed to score a few goals. So quickly, my target was a couple of strikers. So was really delighted when James Stokoe and Mark Gamble both agreed to sign for us for the coming season. Obviously James, you know all about for his previous spell with the club. He loves the football club here, and he was just delighted to come back, and obviously he's been playing at a higher level and it gives us that experience. I think Mark Gamble is an interesting signing for us. He's a young man who's played a lot of football at a higher level, scored a lot of goals. He's very professional about what he does. He takes his football very, very seriously. He's very ambitious, and that was the hardest thing to sell, for him to drop down to the level that we currently play at, was to show that we're an ambitious club. And with Paul in charge now and the rest of the board, you know, we were able to convince Mark that we are an ambitious club. And it was a long battle, but we managed to get his signature in place. So 2 strikers, adding to the ones that we've already signed, hopefully will give us those few extra goals. I think the other 2 signings, again, you'll know one very well in Ollie Phillips and Masters. Ollie's, for me, is a player that I've always admired. Never had the pleasure of working with him, but I'm looking forward to that, because I think he's got a tremendous attitude. He has got his tag of being able to play in many, many different positions, but I primarily see him as a central midfielder. I think it was probably an area that we were a little bit light on last year. So Ollie will come in and give us a bit of strength in that area and fight hard with other players that we've got to get a starting position. And of course he's got that ability to go and play in other positions. So if we're going to have a reasonably small squad, as we have to, someone like Ollie being able to fill in 3 or 4 other positions will be vital to us as well. And the fourth signing is be a young man you probably maybe not know a lot about. It's a young lad that we've signed from Christchurch, and Sam Griffin. If we're being honest, we're very excited about Sam. He's another lad with a tremendous attitude. He wants to step up and try his luck at Southern League football. He's sort of like proven himself now at Wessex League level. He's a wide player, again an area that we felt that we were probably missing somebody out wide who could take somebody on and cross a ball. And Sam fits all that ability. He loves the ball at his feet, he wants to run at people. He's got a bit of an eye for goal. Obviously, like previous signings that we've made from the Wessex League, we have to give Sam a little bit of time, and he'll get that time, and we'll be patient with him. But you know, we've really got high hopes that he'll come in and do very well for us. So the 4 new signings sort of like give us that push forward that we're looking for. I'm hoping that you're excited as I am about it. We start on Monday with the boys in for training. With the season starting slightly later than some of the other leagues, we have to be a little bit careful with pre-season, but we do start with Bournemouth on the 6th of July, and then we've got 6 weeks of hard work and practice matches and training games, etc. to get ourselves ready for that 17th of August. So really it's been quite a busy time, and one that we've probably set out to do quite early. We wanted to do discussions with Paul, we wanted to do our business quite early, if you like, get our signings done and dusted, and you know, put a statement out there to say that you know we're ready to move on to the next step. All I would say is in that is that they say the season is a marathon, not a sprint. So you know, hopefully during the course of the season we'll fully see the benefit of having the players that we've signed, with the players, not forgetting the players that we've already got, because they've got now a year and a half, 2 seasons experience at Southern League level, which I think would be vital for them as well. So really, just really looking forward to the season, and like I say, we start on Monday with the pre-season training.
Thanks, Steve. Just one thing, because you're probably possibly wondering who everyone is here, those of you who don't know. Pete Barham is the football secretary, as you probably well know. Ken looks after the finance, so if there's any questions that are going to be about finance, then Ken will be the person to ask. You know me from myself as chairman, Paul. Steve, you know, I think most of you probably know Tony. Well, Tony's going to be in charge of match day coordination next year. So just ensuring that all the people are in place on match days. I think we said it was about 25 volunteers now, 25 to 30 volunteers, and it kind of needs to be managed. So we've been called out a few times when Rudy was taken ill, for example. You know, we didn't know if he was going to be here or where he wasn't going to be. So Tony's going to kind of oversee that side of it. And those that you may not know, the one on the end, Ed is the chairman of the youth. So actually, Ed, if you could say a few words about the development of the youth and everything, just to keep people up to date, and the cohesion between yourself and Steve and the youth. Ed Taylor.
Well, the situation started running from last season. I started with the reserves, and as Paul points out, about 5 weeks ago, I became chairman of the youth. I run the under-18, one of the under-18s in the Wimborne youth setup. So really it was important for Steve and I last year. We decided that rather than talking a good talk in the sense that there's a link between Wimborne youth and the Wimborne seniors, it actually made it a physical link. In dealing with the under-18 teams, I obviously see all the different age groups as well, and the lads at under-18 find it a real benefit because they see that I'm proximal to the fact that in seeing them, they're being seen by the reserve manager as well. So that gives them a real feeling about the fact that it matters and that there is a real exit route for them. On the other aspect, I obviously liaised with Steve, and the priorities were developing young players into players that would be useful to Wimborne seniors. So identifying ones with potential that would take the opportunity within the Wyvern Reserve League to make the most of their own development. Last year, predominantly, all but 2 players that were recruited to the reserves were under 19, and predominantly they were still, most of them were eligible for playing under 18 at Wimborne. So they had an accelerated passage into the reserves. Managing their expectation is important, because if they get there quickly, they believe they need to move on quickly, which isn't always a possible aspect. They need to develop properly. This year we've retained probably 10 to 12 players out of the 17 that we had last year. And other things do come into it, moving on to university, 2 or 3 of them. So it's not just about players leaving for another club, it's about the fact that personal circumstances moving on at that age. But recruitment's been good this year. There are some very good players coming up from Chris Horan's under-18 team from the second year cohort. And I've seen 6 or 7 of them which match the lads that we had last year in general recruitment. So it's a little bit of a conveyor belt at the moment, getting people on board. But I think that will always be the case with a reserve team. It's always a movable, quite dynamic thing. But in terms of hopefully providing useful material as players to Steve, then hopefully he's going to see the fruits of some of that coming through pretty soon.
Okay, well if anyone's got any questions, hopefully you have. Yes, sir.
Are we entering the team in the FA Youth Cup that's coming to?
Yes.
Good, thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Under 18.
I think
Yeah, I think that
Important competition.
the one thing that will happen with that competition is a very prestigious competition, of course. So we will draw on anybody who's eligible to play in that in terms of being under 18. So whereas Ed said that some of his lads will play in the reserve team level, they will not take part in the youth league on Sunday because they've had 90 minutes on the Saturday. For that competition, we will put out our best available under 18 sides to play in that competition.
I think we also had, I don't know if it's still in place, the thought that you and I
Yeah.
just to give it a bit of kudos as well. Steve and I wanted to have the approach to that youth cup with a solid approach. So we were both saying to each other that we'd undertake to manage that team during that cup session series.
We haven't really taken it seriously in the past. And we looked at it last year as a little bit of a lost opportunity, because it promotes the club as well, and also gives the young players a good opportunity to play a good level at with the crowd. So the decision was made almost on our exit last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, I
But
think
next
so.
year we're going to make sure we do this properly, so that Ed and Steve have got
And
that.
get good publicity as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Especially when you're playing, when you get the level, well we got the Newport before, but when you get hit a bigger non-league or lower division of football league under 18s, a lot of recovery.
What is the setup with the Wyvern League this year? There seem to be quite a few teams that have pulled out of it.
But the Wyvern consists of 11 teams this year. I think Salisbury have gone into the Conference League, so I don't think it necessarily matches with how they'll play their reserve football. But that said, New Milton have come in, and Eastleigh as well. Poole Town have dropped out of it, but what we're faced with is 11 clubs, but they're changing the format of a couple of competitions within it to make sure that we get the same amount of gameplay.
I did hear last season they were talking about some teams said they would prefer it to be a midweek league only.
Yeah.
So any more thoughts on that?
Well, the way that we see it is that it should be providing Saturday football for us. It should be a means of players belonging to the Wimborne setup and feeling that they're available for both reserve and first team football whenever necessary. So it was important for us to keep the Saturday aspect, and that's been scheduled into what Wyvern have decided in the constitution of the league. And they've also, as I say, they've also made steps to actually make sure that even if there's a couple less teams, there's the opportunity for more cup matches to sustain the sort of intensity that the boys need.
I think the most important thing for Ed, the Wyvern squad, is the number of games, because at times they can probably go 3 weeks without a game. So the most important thing is that there's enough fixtures there for the lads to keep themselves match fit. Should they ever be called on to come into the first team, they're ready. The worst scenario would be that somebody hasn't played for 3 weeks, and I'll ask them to come and step up, and they're perhaps not ready for it. So what I think that Ed does very well is that we look at each player individually, and if somebody hasn't played for a couple of weeks, they are eligible for the under-18s, and they'll drop down and play for the under-18s. Drop down is probably the wrong word, but they're eligible to play in that competition, so they will go and play in under-18 football. So we're trying to look after the players, and again, if I can use that word patience, we're very patient with the lads. They all progress at different stages, but Ed does a fantastic job with them, and I'm sure that we're going to see some of them progress through over the coming years.
What friendly matches have we got coming up?
Sorry?
What friendly matches have we got?
Yeah, we've got a pretty full schedule of pre-season friendlies. We're playing Bournemouth again, and the Bournemouth youth team continue that link there that we've had successfully over the couple of years I've been here. We're playing Pooltown, we're playing Bridport. So we've got a good array of friendlies. We've picked out a couple of the strong Wessex League teams in Blackpool and Langley and Bemerton. So we've got plenty of games, and you will be seeing some of the Wyvern squad in those games, because I think I've got 9 pre-season games, but I don't expect players to be playing 90 minutes in those games. They'll be building up. So certainly in the first few games, it's 45 minutes a player building up their match time. So you'll see some of the young boys that have been in the Wyvern tournament. For those of you that are here against Arsenal, when you saw the 5 or 6 lads that we played that night, you can see that there's some nice potential there. So we'll keep developing that over the opportunities when that allows.
Is there any more scope, Steve, about potential loan signings, say from Bournemouth, maybe, perhaps Conference clubs?
Yeah, I think there's always a scope for loan signings. What I am conscious of with a loan signing, though, is whether they've got a real heart and desire to be here. It's not about having a loan player that's helping out that loan player getting fit. If we're going to bring someone in, it's got to be on our terms. But yeah, we've got the links with Bournemouth, which we've used wisely. Hopefully we've used them over a couple of seasons. And there is clubs that, at a higher level that will look to get some of their brilliant players out. But I think when you start off the season, you can't be looking at loan players. You've got to be looking at say, well, if someone gets an injury, then I might have to fill that gap with a loan player if there's nobody in the Wyvern squads that can fill it at that particular stage.
I was just thinking the success of Billy Mabry, I thought slots in very well last season.
Yeah. Billy Mabry was a nice case, because obviously he came in on loan first of all, and then we got him back when he was released from Bournemouth, so we knew all about the club and that. So yeah, there's always the case that there might be a loan player or two, but it will be as circumstances needed, really.
What players haven't signed on this year, Steve?
At the moment, Nathan hasn't signed, Aidan hasn't signed, Kevin Gill hasn't signed, and they're the only ones at the moment. Jordan Cole will be back in on Monday. He hasn't actually put pen to paper yet, but there's a few people that have got to come in and fight for a position or two. And at the end of the day, I can only play 11 and have a squad of 16, and it's down to those players to get in that squad of 16 to start with, and in the starting 11. Those who don't, unfortunately.
Is Nathan likely to?
Nathan might be moving on, if truth be told, yeah, he might be moving on. Obviously, we've brought a few players in, so obviously the downside of that is some players have to go. So it looks at this stage that maybe Nathan will be playing football elsewhere.
Sean Bryan's re-signed, is he?
Sean Bryan's re-signed, yeah, he's fully committed. He missed a couple of midweek matches last year because of training with his work, and he was at college. That's been resolved now, so hopefully we keep Sean fit as well, because he picked up a couple of injuries last year. But I thought his form towards the end of last year was very impressive alongside Adam Costello, and they looked a good partnership. So a bit of touch wood there, and we keep them two fit, and they can continue that partnership.
So Billy Mabry's still there?
Billy's in, yeah. Billy's still in as well, yeah. Yeah, I think Billy was a classic case of being patient. I said that a couple of times tonight. I think Billy deserves a lot of credit, because I've seen a lot of young players join clubs and they don't get their game time, and they lose the will to continue to train, and they're off looking at other clubs. And I never had one bit of trouble with Billy all season. Whether he was in the side or not in the side, he came, and he's one of the best trainers we've got. If he wasn't in the side, he worked just as hard again, and I think he got his rewards sort of like the last 10 or 12 games of the season where he was a regular. When we got to the cup final, I think that was the true faith in him, that we picked him for the cup final ahead of a couple of other players, and that's probably testament to himself to keep going. But you know, I thought he finished the season very strongly, Billy, and you know, competition for places is going to be fierce. And,
I suppose with Aiden, it'd be the travellers, would it?
well, to be fair to Aidan, the travelling was never. I think you know it's probably a burden to him when he stepped in the Isle of Wight car park a couple of times on a midweek trip, waiting for the Q4 ferry because he missed the Q1. But never, no complaints from Aidan. You know, again, pleasure to work with. He didn't come in and say, Steve, I don't want to train this week. I've been there. He was there. He was there. He never missed a match. And where we were leaving at 10 o'clock for an away trip, Aidan was sometimes leaving at 7 o'clock, and like I say, he never moaned, and full credit for Aidan for doing the whole season. But as it stands at the moment, Aidan hasn't signed, but we'll monitor that over the next couple of weeks.
Is your skipper fit now?
Scott, yes, Scott. I mean, Scott hasn't put pen to paper yet, and I think there's a little bit of banter going around between the players, and Scott hasn't actually signed yet. But no, there's, you know, rest aside, there's the deal's been done with Scott. You know, me and Scott are both happy with things. He's had a groin problem that he carried for a lot of the time that I've been manager, if I'm being honest. And Scott wanted to try and get that sorted out. He's had a scan. We thought there might be an operation. So if there was an operation, obviously then he wouldn't be fit for the start of the season. But you know, the scan has come up that he's okay in the groin now. I think he's got a little bit of a hip problem, which is causing the pain in the groin. So, but Scott will be fit. He's having a bit of physio treatment now. He'll be fit for the start of the season.
Same with John Blake.
Great news with John Blake. Obviously, that taking him off on the last game of the season, I think nobody really knew the extent of why we took him off. But he went in for a typical John Blake tackle on the halfway line and opened up his knee a little bit. And the extent of it was he woke up Sunday morning, it was massive for his knee, and he couldn't move. So again, great work from John. We got him in to have a scan straight away. I think we were sort of like 90% sure he was going to have an operation, which would have certainly kept him out of the start of the season. You've seen the surgeon now. The surgeon's said that it's healing nicely. He's started his rehab program, and we expect him to be slightly behind the players in terms of what he's able to do on Monday. He may not be able to join in full training. Well, he won't be joining in full training, but by the start of the season, we fully expect him to be fit and available for selection, which is great for me.
Are you looking for a left back and a midfielder?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many players that are out there. I mean, if I could have, I mean, within the budget we've got to work with and the numbers we've got to work with is the difficulty that we've got. You know, I think that a left back was a problem area for us. Jordan started off very well. He lost a little bit of form, but you know, I still believe in Jordan a lot, and I think he's a player that will get better. Billy stepped in at left back and did exceptionally well. So I think that, you know, there's a little battle to be had there between the two of them. What was the other position you said?
Midfield, you're saying, hey, you need a bit, because you need, if you're saying, Ollie's going to play midfield, whereas, you know, people have been here a while, you to play centre half or full-back, you know. I mean, I don't quite know where's young now. My nose is Haverling, he's in midfield.
Yeah.
But now, obviously, I'm not quite sure what that is, what.
Well, he's played there the last couple of years. Since he's been away from Wimbledon, he's played central midfield, and I think that's his preferred position. That's where I prefer him at this stage. But as I said, I think he's going to be a player that will step in and play in a number of different positions. But the problem is with players like that, I don't want to put him into a bracket that he's just a utility player, because I think it's not fair on him, and it's not fair on the rest of the players either. I think that, you know, Ollie in his right is a good player, he's a good midfield player, and that's where we'll look at him first and foremost. But he's happy to play anywhere as well. So, you know, I'm saying he's a midfielder here, and it could be start of the season he's playing full back or centre half, and you say, but he's capable of doing that, and I think that's why he's going to be such a good addition to us. That's a real bonus.
Yeah, as I understand the requirements for this league, we've got X number of seats, we've got to have a fence behind the spectators, extra loos, people that come in must go through a turnstile. How far can the club go with a pitch in this condition? When I say condition, I mean shape, that we're a reflection on the guy who mows the grass.
As far as the pitch is concerned, we could play Conference League's Premier. Really? No, sorry. Southern League Premier. Yeah, I was just in my
The
little
next
dream
one
world.
up, where
We could go. Yeah. There is other things that we would have to do in terms to meet the D grading. to go up. We would probably need another stand, and that's one of the things that we're just starting to work on. We're D at the moment, aren't we? We're D at the moment. Yeah, so to get the C grading, we would probably need, almost certainly need another stand with seats in it, which we are. We've made the beginnings of trying to start to raise funds for that in case we have a good season. Hopefully we have a good season. So we're giving ourselves effectively till March 2015. We would have to have that in place. If that makes sense. In terms of the pitch is absolutely fine to play at the level above.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
to do
I'm not
with the,
suggesting we should run before we can walk in this league at all.
No.
But I'm just surprised that they do all these peripheral things, and yet
Yeah.
you've got a pitch with
The slope
X number of.
Well, the
I mean, you
actual-
can't get away from that because I mean, if you go 300 yards up the road, this side of Wolford Bill, that's where the slope starts. When
Yeah.
It's a big bang or whatever you
Well,
want to
Hungerford have just been promoted and their slope's bigger than that, and it goes the full length of the pitch.
We play Team North League where
Yeah.
literally it's the height of a goal drop.
Yeah. The actual ratio is 1 to 41, and we're 1 to 30. We're 1 to 43 with the. Yeah. So it's but there is other clubs with much bigger slopes. What appears to be where ours is, I like to think it's tilted. Not
I was going
sloped.
to say it's got a twist. It's sort of like a twist from the
Yeah. But I mean, I haven't been to Northley actually, but Hungerford is quite a gradient, isn't it? I mean, you certainly know when you're playing uphill there, whereas this is kind of equal. Whether you're, I suppose you're still uphill this way, but the tilt is up.
It's when they come up with arcane rules, like making sure that all the games are played by the 30th of April. You've got people playing sort of 8 games in 5 days, or vice versa, you know what I mean? And then they're quite happy with these sloping grounds wherever they may be.
I think the key thing that we actually as a club invest quite a lot of money in our pitch. I mean, Steve twists our arm quite a lot because he wants a good playing surface, and the style of football that Steve wants to play, there's no point us having a pitch that doesn't suit that. So we sign players that want to play football, and if we start lumping it, if we start trying to play the ball on the ground, then we need the pitch to match that. If we were just going to lump it down from one end to the other, then we probably wouldn't invest so much money in the pitch. Off the top of my head, we've probably invested 20,000 in the last 2 seasons. Plus. So over £20,000 in the last 2 seasons on the pitch. You can see it looks a bit patchy at the moment, but there's a lot of work been going on the pitch.
It was quite well used last year.
I don't
To
think
be honest, we had just a horrible winter, didn't we? I mean, not a winter, the whole year was just wet and horrible. So it's, but it is something, it's a little bit of a bugbear of ours because we go to a lot of pitches and they just obviously don't spend any money on it whatsoever. It doesn't support our style of football, which obviously gives them the home advantage. But we do spend a lot of money on our pitch, making the pitch best suited to our style of football. That money obviously could be used elsewhere. We could sign other players with it. You know, it increased Steve's budget to some extent. But at the end of the day, I think everyone would probably agree that, I don't know about you guys, I've enjoyed the football in the last 2 years more than I've enjoyed it for a long time. So I think it's an investment that's worth doing. That said, if we were to get promoted, we do probably need to spend £40,000 on improving the ground to meet the ground, I always get confused with the C grade, to allow us to continue to play in the Southern League Premier, which is effectively what's happened to our name.
But you also, Paul, you've got to look to the future as well, really, because soon, you know, when obviously this ground may not exist for it, you know, so we don't be over ambitious, really.
Well, I
there's
think
always that thing.
we have to put ourselves in the best position, and you touched on something there which no one's mentioned yet, but it is quite an important part of the football club, is the, I call it the cloud that hangs over this club and has probably hung over this club for 15 years, and that is the fact that we might move. And I think it's probably closer than it's ever been, but it does hold us back a little bit in terms of, do you spend money on the clubhouse, do you stop the leaky roof, do you do this, do you do that? As it stands, we're obviously in close communication with the developer that's effectively bought an option on the ground through the landowner, which is Ham Estate, and East Dorset District Council, and their submission to the government of the East Dorset core strategy. So we've been involved heavily in that, and I would suggest that in a roundabout way, we're probably the hub of that project. I think we did touch on it probably this time last year as well. I wouldn't say that it's actually moved on anything, even since last year, only in that it's now with the Secretary of State waiting for a decision.
Just worth bearing in mind, really, you know. So we don't want to
Paul,
boom and bust
so,
situation.
so this plan could still happen, unlike the Bearwood development plan,
Yeah.
which has been killed off. Not that that would affect any of our neighbours, of course.
No,
Which
well,
are,
it could still happen.
whose plan to have a ground there has died with it, by the way.
The latest I've had is that should it proceed, it's going to be a minimum of 4 years. So we're looking at, we have to do things here to continue as we are really, and I think if it happens, I think the only thing that's on my mind is, as a club, we just need to make sure that we're not only in the best position league-wise, because we've kind of got a gentleman's agreement that they give us the infrastructure to allow us to play 2 leagues above the league we're in. So effectively, the higher up the league we are, the better facility that we're probably going to get. That said, they've kind of drawn the plans up. I mean, there is a plan being drawn up, not submitted as such, but we've certainly been heavily involved in
the money.
So again,
You've got to watch what
well,
we
do
don't
you know
go
what?
to the same road as Tottenham.
Absolutely, and there's that's a wake-up call to us all, really. And it frightens the life out of me. I went to the top meeting with my other Southern League cap on, and it's frightening, to be honest with you, what's happened there.
What has happened? I know they've gone.
Well,
Bust
they've just overstretched themselves, and they've gone from a similar infrastructure to what we've got here to a builder coming along and saying, we'll build you a virtually £3 million ground, doing it, not doing it properly in actual fact, and so it's kind of been a white elephant since the day they opened it up. But what they didn't do correctly.
How long ago was that?
3 years. What I think, and I'm not saying we're cleverer or anything like that, because we actually went to Tottenham when it was first opened, and we had a meeting with them, and they actually told us some of the pitfalls and sort of some of the things that we need to be careful of ourselves. And one of the things that they've really been caught out on is they've gone from an infrastructure like this, where they were paying £3,000–4,000 a year rates, to paying £30,000 to £40,000 a year rates. So straight away, and all their overheads and everything are massively increased, and they just haven't had the business to sustain it.
But at the end of the day, what's brought them down has been the wages that they've paid to their players. I mean, there'll be plenty of you here like me who remember going to Tottenham year after year, lovely club, played at Testwood Park in the Wessex League, always had a good game against them. They knew where the limits were. Suddenly 4 years later they've gone like that and then just exploded. And it is, you can talk about infrastructure costs, but at the end of the day, it's paying stupid money that they can't afford to play. Which is, but let's not forget, is completely discretionary. You can pay that much or you can pay that much. Not a lot you can do about the rates, but you can do anything you like with players' wages, and that's where they've gone wrong. And it's a lesson to all of us. I'm not going to sit here and say how stupid they've been. We would never do that, because we need to keep our eyes on the ball.
Do you not think it will be in a good position? Perhaps this week we haven't got the London derby, but we're in a good position because there's a lot of players who probably want to play at our level who probably might play for less than because they want to play at our level. I don't know.
There's probably never been so many players available to sign during the summer months because of a couple of clubs struggling. And I think you're right that where players probably had 2 or 3 clubs fighting over them, they sort of like then can say, well, I want this, I want that, and clubs will try and match it. I think that you're right that there is players out there that want to stay at Southern League level, they want to come up to this level, and we're the only club in this area at present, at the South and West level. So we've been in a good position to get the signings that we have, and potentially, we could have had a few more as well. But just to echo what Ken says, we're not going to go out and contrary to what people think. We've got realistically the same kind of budget that we had last year. So we're not going to go out and sign 4 or 5 new players on top of what we got, and then stretch ourselves, finish mid-table, and then be in debt. I'm conscious as the manager that we'll always be forward in line with what the board say in terms of budget, so we'll try and stay within that as well. So, I think we're all conscious of that in these times as well. But definitely there are players available, and they will pay for less money. Yeah.
Have you left yourself enough room for manoeuvre on that, obviously?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Tottenham, a lot of their players are waiting to see them, someone like Carl Pettifer. He works at the school up the road.
Yeah, there is.
He's obviously waiting to see what happens.
Yeah.
You've done your business. then
We're never done and
you're
dusted. Never done and dusted. I mean, there's you know, the reality is if a better player comes along, players know this. Players know this. If better players come along, you lose your place. Okay, but it's up to you as a player to say, well, I am as good as him. So you know, I try and have a competition for places, and that's what I think we've got at the moment. And if players don't perform, then they don't get the side. You know, and they're clearly told that, and players know that they work for me, they've got to perform. And if suddenly a player becomes available and I think they can do better, then you know that's what happens. But if players go out there and perform, then you know I like to think I'm loyal to those players as well.
Did we ever nearly come close to losing any that you didn't want to?
I was confident that they're happy here. One of the good things is that it is important what happens out on the pitch, but I also think players like to be looked after as well. I'm not talking about money here, I'm just talking about a right kind of environment. And I will praise the people that come and watch. You do back us, and I've said that since I've been here, that you know, I've said it in a presentation speech, whether it's because I'm over the other side and I don't hear much, but you know, I don't hear a lot of negative comments coming out to the players, and they do comment on that, where you know they played for other teams and supporters get on their backs very early when the expectation levels become a little bit higher. So, you know, they enjoy playing in front of the people that watch them here. They enjoy playing for the board. We always support them, and are realistic in their ambitions as well. So, I think I was always confident that the players are happy here.
No, because we've got some good, really, haven't we? You know, like Blakey, and I thought Jason had a cracking season. And you think, they could go, they could play at a higher level.
Well, if I was manager of a high, I'd be in for one or two, yeah. That's been all. I think one or two of our players can certainly play at a higher level, without doubt.
Or be approached. Yeah. Well, they've been approached. We have been approached, but they have been approached.
Yeah. Have we been approached for any of our players or anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, we've got certain ones that are on contract, the younger ones are on contract, so we've had no official approaches for any of those, but as happens, there might be one or two unofficial ones to see if they sign their contract or not. But yeah, the non-contract boys, they'll always get offers from other clubs. You know, there is obviously the core of teams that are around this area, and they will look at them. But you know, as I said, most of the boys that have had offers have decided to stay with us. So you know, we're delighted with that.
That's something else, because going back to your point, Lee, that's something else that Steve's got to juggle between contract and non-contract players, because obviously with a lot of contract players you don't have that flexibility throughout the season to say, right, bring you in, let you go. That's another perspective that Steve's got to look at all the time.
I think our policy has been on the contract. There is certain players that are over 24 that are on contract, but the younger players that are under the age of 24, once we get them on contracts, you know, for them to go elsewhere, even if it's at the end of their contract, you know, fees required for that to happen. So, you know, and we said that when we come here, and you know, my selling point to the younger players is that I want to take you on this journey with me. So, you know, we've been loyal to those younger players, and I think we've seen the benefit of that. And like I say, adding the experience that we've got as well, hopefully it all just bodes well.
Past, there's been situations where players play for the club on Saturday afternoon or Sunday morning, and go and play for our team. Obviously, you've got a non-contract player, not got much.
No.
You haven't got much reign over them, really. Is it sort of an unwritten law they can't do it, or?
Yeah, none of the players can play Sunday football without asking me. So the ones that did play, played for a reason. They weren't playing games, for instance, or if they did play, they got themselves in trouble. So I expect players at this level not to play Sunday football, whether they're on contract. Obviously they can if they're on contract. The non-contract players can't play, and they wouldn't play without asking.
Anyone remember a young guy called Killick used to play for us, did his cricket playing in a Sunday league team?
Yeah. Was it last season Jamie got a ban?
Season before.
Yeah.
That's why I said unless I know about it, unless they get into trouble. Jamie got in trouble.
But Gary, the answer to that question is always yes.
Yeah.
And if you remember, Steve, God knows how we kept out of the press.
Well, it was in the press. I think that's how we
Did
found
he
out.
get in eventually?
If you're going to play Sunday, don't do a very good job of it, and then they don't mention
Well,
your
don't
name.
manage the referee.
He is someone else.
With the loosening with regards to the rules for the League Cup, with regards to how many players you can start having in previous games, use as an opportunity to look at one or two of the reserve players, see how they would integrate in, or is it more that you want to do that in other?
Yeah, I think if I sat here now and saying that, you know, hopefully we've won a few games and the Reading Cup comes along on a Tuesday night, I'll be looking at play a couple of players. But as I found with the Dorset Senior Cup, sometimes those cup competitions come along at the right time. You know, for various reasons, the Dorset Senior Cup has been a good trophy and one that I take very seriously. And the run that we had in that to get to 2 finals has helped us in our first year where we were struggling, and last year where we needed a little bit of a push on, and that semi-final that we were looking forward to against Weymouth. So I use the cup competitions. I would say I would like to use players that possibly are not regulars, but at this stage, when the draw's made and the cup competition comes around, we'll have a look at it. But if we, you know, it's on the back of maybe a couple of defeats, we'll go as strong as we possibly can. But I've done a press interview for it today, and it's, you know, you've got 5 competitions. 2 of them you're probably not going to win in the FA Cup and the FA Trophy. Victory in those 2 are get through a few rounds. So that leaves 3 competitions: the League, the Dorset Senior Cup and Readingshire. Now I'm not going to throw one away just because it gives a few players a game. I want to try and do our best that we can in all the competitions.
And there is, the other side to that is that there is Steve and I are liaising and things like that, because once you actually move a player up from the reserves, maybe for a one-off cup tie in the Senior Cup, then he's basically tied on the fact that he can't then play the Senior Trophy in the reserves. And if you've got a certain limit to your squad size in the reserves, you want to maintain some integrity for those lads to feel that they belong and what they're doing is worthwhile. And they need to sort of necessarily, within cup competitions, have a good side that can run as well. So it is a balancing act. If Steve absolutely needs somebody, then the priority is there. But otherwise, you're trying to balance the fact that both teams have got to stay with some degree of integrity, whilst you know the priority for the first team.
I think just to back that up, I think if you recall the Dorset Senior Cup run, the Dorchester game, when the original tie, when I think fog come in and it was called off, team selection that night would involved 5 players under the age of 19 that out of the Weymouth squad were starting. That night they would have started. Now at the time we were needed to rest a few players. They've had a lot of games, so it was seen as the opportunity time to put 5 of them in. Now that game was called off, and those 5 lads who sat in the change rooms, they didn't actually know they were starting, so they will do after they watch this, but it was disappointing for them. But when the tie was rearranged some 3 weeks later, a few of the lads had been out of game. We went with a strong tie against Dorchester, and we obviously won. So it's about the right time and the right circumstances, and if the boys are ready as well.
For those of you that you don't know, it's been the topic of conversation, hence the reason Steve's had an interview today. Peter, would you like to just explain the rule changes on the Readingshire Cup?
Yeah, the Readingshire Cup at the AGM, there's been quite a lot of comment made about having so many players who are first team experience. There are some teams in the league who treat it as being an unnecessary competition. The league have tried several ways to try to get the enthusiasm, but the problem is that you've got so many distances to travel in between the clubs. If you get out of the regional one, we started off with playing Bashley and Town, which we played last year. But when you get beyond that, then you've got to travel midweek quite a long distance, and the reward really for that is only if you win the competition or get to the finals. So if you really want to try and get an incentive now, the league have now come back to you can play anybody that you want. You know, there's no restriction as to who you can pick inside. So if you want to play a weekend side and go out, you can. Right, so
I think before it was
we had to play 7.
you had to play
7 players who'd
started
previous
you know,
league games.
and you had the stupid situation, I think, Poole Town with Hutchins he played 1 minute and then he went off as a sub, you know, he was substituted. But it just so that Paul could start with the required number of players. But that rule now has changed so that from next season you can play, as long as you're registered in the Southern League, you can start. And obviously you'll see teams that probably don't want to proceed any further in competition will just play a very weak team, but they've obviously all got to be registered. So that's the change.
Can teams opt out?
Yeah, well, that's the other thing that Paul's just said. There is a fee, I think £100 to enter the competition. If you decide not to go into the competition, I think you have to pay £300. You know, so plus the £100 as well.
It's 200 plus the 100.
200, yeah. So it will cost you, if you want to go out of the competition altogether, it'll cost you 300 instead of entering 100 and probably playing one game and losing it. But it's very difficult, isn't it?
They could sort of slim down the competition, couldn't they? And where's the actual finals being played?
Well, they decide that when they get towards semi-finals as to
the finals home and away.
Is that home and away based?
I think Steve hit the nail on the head. At the end of the day, there was 3 realistic trophies that we're in the mix for, and why do you want to pull out of it? You know,
exactly.
It does cost a bit. If you get, like Pete said, when you start travelling away, obviously you've got a coach at £400 or £500, and really you're not paying for anything. I think, is there a gate split on an away rent?
There is a gate split, but it's some of the clubs who don't have as many supporters as us.
I'll run like
It's a
Pop
bit of a risk.
Rovers.
Do you know what? It's actually worth to win it. It's £3,000. So if you get to win it, you obviously get a home tie on the semi-final. Possibly a home tie on the semi-final. Definitely a home tie on the final. And I'd imagine if we were at home here in the Red and Short Cup final, I think we'd probably get 400 or 500 people. So it is worth it, especially with the prize money. And runners up at £1,500. So it's quite a lot of money as well. It's up the ground.
Just with your league hat on your shirt.
Trying to justify it though.
With your league hat on, Paul, are we in a 20 league team this coming season or 22? Or have we joined the Northern Premier League?
Yeah. To be fair, it's nothing to do with the Southern League. It's
Right,
to do with the FA Leagues
Yeah,
Committee.
it's the league committee.
And but my understanding of it is that the Southern League strongly object to them being moved to the Central League.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
That's sorry,
Guildford,
folks,
is it?
Guildford
My
and
missus is
Godalming.
from Surrey.
Yeah. I'm not sure really. This week. The comments that were made to me was it was a 24-man panel that's on the league's committee that decide who's going to go in what league. And you're never really ever going to keep anyone happy. And yet it's a 3-man panel, leagues, from the same 24 that actually makes that final decision on an appeal. Which does seem a bit strange really, when 24 people have agreed it. Well, a majority vote of people have agreed it. And then it comes down to 3 people that have to make a decision.
But I don't think we've got any chance of their appeal, because as far as I'm concerned, all they're saying is the grounds are, we don't like the decision. No, here's some new evidence.
I think they have put forward that there are 2 other clubs that would do less travelling if they were swapped than them, but
That's always good. You can always point out things like that.
The league fixtures will be out on the 17th of July. So,
Was the first game when?
Sorry?
Was the first game when?
17th of August, Saturday. That's when our league starts.
Well, our nearest game's Fleet then, isn't it?
Fleet or
Bolton
Thatcher?
Rovers actually. Bolton Rovers is actually.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Well,
Manchester.
my vision, Bolton Rovers.
If you look at Route Master, you'll find
Boxing Day
it's
away.
about 5 minutes quicker to Fleet.
Fleet's the easiest.
I think me and Steve went to Hemel this year, didn't we? And it was such an easy run up the M3 to Hemel. It took us an hour and 40 minutes, didn't it? And John. And we just flew up the M3 and we were driving past all these clubs that were in the Central League and thinking, you know what, that wouldn't be the end of the world.
Careful what you wish for, innit?
Yeah. Anyone else got anything at all?
So what are we going for this year? I mean, obviously the title, but
Do you know what? I get asked that question all the time.
I bet
in
you
the
do.
press. My answer to it all the time is you work hard to win the game on Saturday. So I want to win the first game of the season, and I want to win the second game, and I want to win the third. And where that takes us, that will take us. But I'm just concentrating on winning the next game. And that's what you've got to do. I know it sounds a little bit boring, but that might sum it up a little bit. But I don't think you can start looking what's going to happen in May when you're in August. You've just got to say we're going to try and be the best we can be week in, week out.
You'd be happy with a few more clean sheets this year, wouldn't you?
Well, I think we finished well with the clean
we did,
sheets,
yeah.
and probably if you look at where we scored a lot of goals at the start of the season, we let them in as well, and then we started to get clean sheets at the end of the season, and then we struggled for a few goals. So hopefully those things sort of work out a little bit better for us next year, and we get a few points, but a few more points anyway.
What about the bonuses?
Bonuses.
Well, we don't like clean sheets because we have to pay a clean sheet bonus. My ideal game is we're 3-0 up with 5 minutes to go. Steve takes off the goalkeeper and we lose. We win 3-1.
Ben, towards the end of last season, they could have put him on a bloody goal scoring bonus, didn't I?
What worries me about a small squad, if you're facing a situation like we had last year with the weather, you get a massive build up of fixtures towards the end of the season. If you've got a small squad, you've got no chance. You're playing 3 or 4 games a week. But the league considered this, a lot of people said they should play a lot more games at the beginning of the season. The first 2 or 3 months you should be playing 2 games a week. Have they talked about this at all?
They don't talk about it in an official capacity, and because of the argument, well, it's not even an argument, but the problem is the leagues can't do that because of the FA Trophy and FA Cup, because you're getting a game, at least one game every 3 weeks. And we had a very, very, 1 in 100 winter this year. And to be fair, it's not going to happen every year. And every club in the Southern League, 68 clubs, finished all their games within. And there wasn't many, maybe Bridgewater. But this comes back to the argument that we discussed a million times. I don't quite know what Bridgewater's situation was. Bishop's Cleeve weren't much better. At the end of the day, it was almost, we had 1 game called off. If you don't invest in your pitch, you're going to end up with that backlog. Therefore, they're kind of making a rod for their own back. So, we don't know their circumstances. To be fair to Bishop's Cleeve, it's not like they're spending millions of pounds on players. They just obviously haven't got the funds to do it. If you haven't got funds to do it, you haven't got the funds to do it. Then there's an argument, are you playing at too high a level? So, at the end of the day, the 68 clubs that entered the Southern League last year all finished their fixtures on time. If they had to play 4 a week because I think Bridgewater is probably the worst example, and they've clearly got a problem with their pitch. At the end of the day,
does it compromise the quality of the league though? If you think about showing blokes at the bottom of Christmas, they're not the bottom side. They were never going to. They made a decision about pulling out of the league, but that side, they were never going to be in the mix because they lost too many games.
Maybe the argument is that the league should, instead of worrying so much about how many seats you've got, lay down standards for the quality of the playing side. That's a more difficult one because it's subjective, isn't it? But that's the real answer to Wessex League.
Do you know what? Logically, it may. I know exactly what you're saying, and it would sort of tick all the boxes. But do you know what? It could be just as wet in August as it could be in January. So, the year they decide that's what they're going to do, you can bet your bottom dollar it pour rain for 30
But
days.
it seems like Teverton Roll's going to have trouble, isn't it?
Well, because
It just builds up, doesn't it? After weeks, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean,
They want nothing to build an artificial pitch.
there's some fair
I don't
argument.
want to travel to Cinderford, we stripping.
well, the lot down the road, wasn't there? I mean, they must have had the biggest backlog of fixtures. I mean, they were playing every 3 days or something, weren't it? And success breeds its own problems, wasn't it?
It is a tricky one, really. I'm not really convinced that is the answer, actually. Because Steve will tell you, when those trophy games come and the FA Cup games come, thick and fast, it's hard work, isn't it?
Yes.
Early, the first 3 months of the season is probably the hardest thing, and then all of a sudden, I mean, it's important to the club to have a good run in the cups because obviously it earns the club money. So, there's almost, we're desperate obviously to do well in the league, but equally we're all as desperate to earn some money early doors in the cups as well. So if you start chucking a few mid-week league start picking up injuries because if it is dry, they're playing on rock hard pitches. So there's kind of arguments both ways, I'm sure, and British weather, of course. Just that's what's going to happen. I think if people remember the year before, I mean, I only know this because of the hassle we've had on the bottom pitch. We've got a lot of youth teams training on the bottom pitch, and it's taken its toll on the bottom pitch. But the year before, and Ken will tell you, we've spent an absolute fortune on AstroTurf pitches this year, not only for the first team but for the reserves and the youth and everything else. And I mean, just off the top of my head, Ken, what's it, 10, 12 grand?
It's maybe not quite as much as that, but it's certainly 8 to 10 grand
on
training pitches.
Training facilities for the winter. The previous season, I'm right in saying the first team trained the whole winter on the bottom pitch because the weather wasn't as wet as it was last year. So it's just one of those things you don't really know what's going to happen really.
The bonus player the players got last season.
Yeah.
What was their reaction to it? And are we doing it again this season?
Well, we're definitely going to do it again this season. Steve's the man that has the money actually.
Yeah, no, the bonus system that's in place for it it's a big draw for the players as well. It just helps me negotiate in terms of, you know, upcoming finances for the season. So be able to negotiate a bonus into what they do is important. So grateful for that as well.
We're all grateful because it does help. It does help. Where Steve's obviously trying to sign players, and you can say to a player, he wants 80 quid a week. Tell you what, we'll give you 50, but if we win, there's another 20 in it for you, and the supporters are putting that money in. Then I think that they know the score then. You know, so it keeps the budget down, but also might still attract the player, if that makes sense. Anyone else got anything?
Is there any news, you mentioned like the stand or any other developments in the ground, is anything firmed up on that yet?
Well, nothing's firmed up at all, but I will
I haven't got a story then.
I will take the opportunity to say we've looked into the cost of a new stand. A 75-seater stand would be approximately £30,000. So, yeah. And but if we could raise 15,000, which actually doesn't sound as much, obviously, we're pretty confident we could get Football Foundation some sort of grant to match that £15,000. What we need to do is we need to set it up as a project.
Yeah.
It's very difficult because we appreciate that everyone walks in here, we're nabbing a quid off of them for 50-50, a quid or a £5 or a tenner for the win bonus. We are asking, there's only so many times you can ask people for money. But we're trying to set up a little group of people that are going to take that on in their own different way. They'll hopefully come up with new ideas to raise that money, and if we can raise that money in the next 18 months, that puts us in a position to then apply for a grant. Well, we'll probably have to apply for the grant within a year actually, to give us time to get the full amount of money in and get the, and the other thing is it has to be temporary. So when I say that, those would be the pool. It would have to be a stand like that because one, we wouldn't get a grant for a permanent stand because we don't have a long enough lease due to the fact that we might be moving. And secondly, that would allow us to take it with us as well. So it kind of takes people.
The last club I had was that one, and they're very good.
Yeah.
And you just drop them in place, don't literally drop.
Well, everywhere you go, you see them. To be honest with you, I mean, the first sort of
Cookies.
The thing that got the ball rolling was just seeing it's Swindon Supermarine again. Those of you who went there, they had 2, 3 or 4 of them, didn't they? They didn't have the seats in them. Or they had seats in 1 or 2, but they didn't have seats in the others. And you can buy them with or without seats. And they're literally a steel structure that they come and they literally crane it in place, tighten the bolts up, and it's job done. So it'd be nice to have it. I mean, do you know what the reality of it is? It'll probably get used by 5 or 6 people at home. Apart from when it rains, of course, because everyone bungles in this one stand. But you've got to have it for the
Where
ground
would it be? Where would you have it?
Well, we were kind of thinking down the bottom end, in the bottom corner, all behind the bottom goal. So it'd be one or the other, really. It would just depend. I mean, we would have to speak to the planning people and just see if we'd need planning permission for it, even if it was considered to be a temporary structure. So
they'll generate a charge just for doing a bit of paperwork.
Well,
I mean, that's the way it works.
So, but yeah, behind the bottom goal, I think would be nice, and there's plenty of room there. Or maybe in the far corner.
The only trouble with that is historically we've always kicked this way second half. Well, You know,
I know what you're saying. But
To
there's
an
no
extent, it's to tick a box or something.
Yeah, it is literally to tick a box. So.
And just to be clear, I mean, if we let's say we get promotion next year, we don't need to do anything to the ground until the March of the following season, which is March 2015. That would be the earliest that we would actually have to adhere to ground grading, the ground grading above the one that we're in just now.
So we're giving ourselves 20 months-ish. 21 months. Toilets aren't, believe it or not, they never get used in the bottom, but they don't conform to the level above. We could go up, and that's to some extent what Paul Town are doing. They've promoted, they've got the D grading, which allows you to be promoted, but then you have to do all the work within that season by the 31st of March, and we'd be no different. So we'd have to upgrade the bottom toilets as well. There is some other things as well.
Just going back to security of tenure, as you might put it, do you feel there's any sort of doubt in the back of your mind that, you know, Hannons, they got rid of, I know, all right, yeah, they give them another cricket ground, but I mean, the people that are down there now are quick to capitalise on any ground that they can flog off. And do you feel that you know, there is any danger you could end up like that?
Do you know what? There's always a danger of that, and it's not something that we've ignored, is it? We do talk about this, and we've.
I wonder how trustworthy all these people are in the background. They've got a finger in the pie.
Well, the key thing is we have been here since. Well, I don't know if we've actually been here since 1878. But we've been here for an awful long time, and that gives us rights in itself. So we've sought advice on that, because what we've got is a rolling lease. The lease ran out 5 or 6 years ago, and since that point we've had a rolling lease. So we've kind of taken legal advice, I would say unpaid legal advice, to see what our position is, and is our position weakening as time goes on? And the answer to that is no, we have still got rights to be here. So if we were to, say they turned up one day and said, sorry, you've got to go, well then if we appealed that and went to court, we've been reliably informed that we would be given at least a 15-year lease. As it stands, we're trying to work with them, and I think they appreciate that fact. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There is a huge financial gain to them to shift us and say thank you very much, get lost, because they can build us a £2.5 to £3 million stadium. But I think the negative publicity they receive from that is just not good for us or developer or anyone. So as it stands, I've got a reasonable amount of trust. There's no point trusting anyone, a developer, 100%. But as from the advice we've been given from the law point of view, we are reasonably safe in that. But the other side of the coin is you start taking a developer to court, it's going to cost thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds. So we're working closely with them, and at the moment that's probably our best form of protection. We've been offered other options actually. Those of you that are very local probably know about the rugby club being offered the land opposite Fox and Hounds. We were offered that before they were, but they wanted us to share it with the rugby club, and we were just too far down the line with the current developer here really to consider going anywhere else. So, and the other key thing we decided is the East Dorset Council support this. I don't know if anyone's been to any of the core strategy meetings. I think you've seen one or two of you there. I'm not sure who it is now. But the East Dorset support the club moving and building. So if they move us to where they want to move us, it's Greenbelt land. So they obviously have to make all that happen. So they're fully supportive of that happening, whereas they weren't supportive of the Fox and Hounds project. So we decided to stick with what we did best with.
So is there a site allocated for the club?
Yeah, it's sort of. I think again, all these things have been negotiated, and whether options have been. I mean, it's nothing to do with us really. But the site that's been allocated is the end of Parmenter Way, so it is what is on all the plans effectively as a sports village on the East Dorset strategy. The only thing that's incorrect is that we'll be sharing with the rugby club, because that's just something that I think the council thought would be nice, but they didn't really look into the workability of that. So that whole site, which actually the entrance to it is via Parmenter Way, the main pitch and the main ground would actually back on to Brook Road Industrial Estate, and the second pitch would effectively, it would be two ways. One would go that way, which would be the main pitch, and that one there would be, there's a corner of Brook Road Industrial Estate, and then where the main road comes down, you can't even see in there because the trees are so high. But so it would be backing onto, the second pitch will back onto the bypass, Wimborne bypass.
That's keep the shots down then.
Say again?
Don't balls going on the bypass.
Well, I think it'll be
we'll be kicking into the sewage works.
Yeah. In actual fact, there's the buffer between the second pitch and the road is taken up by the relocation of the allotments. So the allotments are going up there as well.
Poor boys in the cabbages.
Yeah.
You've got the areas marked off.
Yeah.
But when I was doing security, stewarding,
Yeah.
we used to walk round this where if they weren't supposed to stand there, we'd get them to move. The stewards now are not doing it. I'm on about, where they're down by the old tea room.
Right.
They're standing there and sometimes you can't get through.
I think generally speaking it only happens when we've got, like it probably happened at the Arsenal game. I think there's so many people about. I think it is down to the stewards obviously to move them on. Personally speaking, I think it's only an issue if people can't see. So if they're stood back out of the way, I don't think it's a big issue. If they're stopping the rightful way, then obviously that would be an issue. Unfortunately, we probably haven't got enough stewards to be constantly moving around and walking and keeping their eyes on entrances. Trust me, there's a queue of people trying to jump the fence and get in for nothing. So they're constantly looking and sort of identifying those key areas. But yeah, I'm sure we can speak to Kevin and Mike to just keep an eye on it. So the other thing is, which is down to us,
Yeah,
they're not particularly well hatched.
You've got someone stood there and someone's injured, the club's liable.
Yeah. But we need to do the yellow lines as well because it's not that obvious to us. Just on, I'm going to just touch on people that were here for the last meeting. It's actually a little bit of praise. We were asked a lot of questions at the last meeting. For those of you who were here, I don't know if you. There must have been quite a few on there. One of the key things was the actual, not so much advertising, but the actual profile of the club in the local press. So I think credit to Richard because we've identified all the sort of local papers like the Star and Avon. Seeking News gives us a lot of coverage, and I think everyone hopefully will agree that the profile of the club in the last 12 months, off the back of the last fans forum, is increased probably tenfold actually. And Simon actually, thank you Simon, because the photos are appearing in the local press, and Richard's press releases are appearing in the local press as well. So I'd like to thank you both for that. On another note, those of you that use the internet, we're having a new website built. The old one's kind of run its course now, and it's a little bit outdated. So it is an investment for the football club, and you'll see when it's done. Hopefully it'll be a really nice one. It looks nice so far. Yeah. So it's being built at the moment. Hopefully that'll go live in about another month's time. We've invested in it because we feel there's ways of making money out of the website. So we're kind of spending a fair amount of money on the website with a view to getting more advertisers and that sort of thing on there, which hopefully long term will bring in more revenue and again, hopefully make the club more sustainable.
Paul,
so thank you for that.
Could you also mention Twitter and Facebook? A lot of people go on Facebook, get massive hits, 3,000 a week now, but a lot of yous are clicking a ticking like, but a few comments, some of you don't swear because kids are, and same on Twitter. It's yours, that is your way to get involved in the, to get involved in the publicity.
Yeah, it's a purpose social network. The thing is, those of you that do use it, the Facebook page is actually, as it stands, probably more up to date than the website because things happen instantly. So if there's if we've got a
photos of this will be on tomorrow.
Yeah. So there's lots of things happening on the Facebook page, and so it's worth. And is it Wimborne Town FC?
It is, yeah.
If you go on the website, if you go on our website, www.wimbornetownfc.co.uk, there's two, depending on your browser, either at the side or the bottom, there's one Twitter icon or whatever you call them, and one Facebook.
Link.
Click on it because we used to have two, and it takes you to it.
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
not,
so
it's
easy
not
to
the
get
one
on.
that says magpies anyway. That's the key.
That's
thing,
dead.
isn't it?
People still got it, by the way.
It's a good way of keeping up to date, and it's also a good way. What I personally like about it is it's a good way of sharing information to all my friends that have got no interest in the football club whatsoever. So I bombard them with stuff, and do you know what? It does work, and it is all.
The youth is on there as well, isn't there?
What, Wimbledon Town Youth
There's
on
not
there?
reserves though, is there?
No.
Yeah.
Well,
The
that's
the
reserves
youth,
has
isn't
been
there?
told.
well, the thing is, we actually don't want too many.
No,
to be
no.
fair. So you're better off. The reserve stuff's better off being on
Yeah.
the main one. But it is a really good way of spreading the word subconsciously to people that are your friends. The same with Twitter, actually. If people have got Twitter accounts, I know there's a few here that have. It's a really good way, especially on match days, away games. Either myself, Richard, or someone generally, if there's goals or whatever, or the scores are on there, it's a good way of keeping in touch.
It went insane as well after Gamble was signed because according to the Echo reporters on Twitter, Steve was going to sign every player in the bloody country. We were linked literally with everybody. And you know, if anybody could have gone in and joined in or shot, well, don't shoot them down if they think we're wonderful. But going and shooting down.
Do you know what? It might be a little bit going over people's heads, and to be fair, it does mine at times. But it's become a really, really important part of non-league football. I think every single club in our league has now got a Facebook and a Twitter account.
Yeah, I mean, I speak from personal experience before. I mean, there's at least 5 people from my sort of community advisor on Facebook who say, yeah, that's ready. A few more as well, maybe.
Well,
so, you know, it's
a good way of communicating, it's a good way of spreading the word. You may, and everyone's invited, by the way. We've got the sponsors draw next Friday night. As it stands, I believe Harry's coming to do the draw.
We need to talk.
Oh, okay, well.
It's 99% sure.
Okay, so everyone's welcome, you know, and make sure you let tell everyone else. I put the advertising poster for the patron draw on the Facebook page. This is on my personal Facebook page, not the football club's one. It's been on there anyway. I just put, it'd be really nice if I could sell 10 of these. And I reckon I sold 4 off the back of that one posting. So it's amazing how many people you're going to reach. And we get a report actually every week about the amount of people. And I think some weeks we reach something like 5,000 people with our Facebook page. Because obviously if I've got 200 friends on Facebook, they all get to see anything I put.
You get players inquiring as well, don't you? All the little messages you get players, you know, potential signings that I don't know. Do they ever turn up for training? Do they ever?
Yeah, we've got a number of players coming in next week from various avenues.
Yeah.
You know, just emails to the club, Twitter, those types of things. People just use it, contact us, and we invite them in for pre-season.
Brilliant.
Paul,
yes.
Yes, I forget. This is not a prepared question. How are sales of the patrons' row tickets going? Are they going very well at the minute?
Thank you, Richard. That's a very.
Are they like well ahead of last year's? Please answer.
We're actually really happy, and it's a testament again. I think it goes without saying that Steve kind of, with his enthusiasm and his hard work, motivates the rest of the board into getting our own asses into gear to effectively making the funds available for Steve to put the team together. Last year we sold 38 entrants into the patrons draw, and I'm pleased to say this year, yesterday, we actually hit the 60 mark, so we're 22 up on last year with another week to go. So I've kind of set a new target now for 75. I think that would be pushing my luck.
Is that publishable, 75?
No. Well, I did say that on Twitter. There you go.
Yes, that's why I'm asking it. It's all over Twitter now.
I think we're getting to that point now where they're coming in a little bit slower, but do you know what? They're still coming in, and that's brilliant for the football club because apart from anything else, that's 60 businesses that we're getting involved in the football club one way or another. The likelihood is that 50% of them probably won't do anything else all year, and then you'll ring them up next year and they go, yeah, no problem at all. Hopefully, we can get the other 50% to get involved, come and watch a game, sponsor a match. We're doing a little bit more with the ball sponsor this year. You've probably noticed a lot of you when you turn up for a game now, we've got a sponsor that has a sit-down meal. So we're moving that a step forward again, where we're going to sell the matchbook sponsor, which is a table of 6 with a sit-down meal, and everything else as well. So we're just expanding again on things, and to have 60 businesses actually interested in being involved in football club is fantastic.
I think Dave could do with those people's names and addresses, couldn't he?
Yeah, Dave here's helping us out with some of the commercial stuff. He's taken on board initially literally the pitch side boards, isn't it?
And the exterior stand boards that we're going to put out there now.
Fantastic opportunity, I like to call these things. On the outside of the ground is actually a higher profile area for advertising than inside the ground. We've got 60 nurses that park their cars there every day, or certainly 60 cars. I'm sure
You're not saying it's more interesting watching the cars park than Steve's football?
It's effectively there for 50 weeks of the year, isn't it?
From a revenue point of view, it's probably an easier place to sell.
Yeah.
I think Dave would probably say, and anyone that's been out and spoken to local businesses, I think the biggest excuse I get is, I ain't really interested in football. Well, you don't need to be interested in football, because the footfall into the football club's 1,000 people a week, and if your advertising board's on the outside of the ground, you haven't got to be interested in football, you're promoting yourself to 1,000 people a week. So Dave's on the case for that. We had a meeting yesterday, and we're pushing ahead with that, and he's already had some success, which is great news. So we're on the case. Good news for Steve, and Jeff, actually. I haven't told you that. I'll tell you that.
Are you having long or short sleeve shirts this season?
It's easy for you to say. Say that again at 5 o'clock, 9 o'clock.
Well, in some ways, it was a bit of an embarrassment, I think, for the club last season. I mean, my wife cut the sleeves off, but I don't know if you know anything about
what your wife
making of shirts. Those sleeves did not hang properly. In fact, they looked like a lot of waifs sometimes as they came out of the dressing room.
I think the design of the kit comes in long sleeves, and I think the players had an idea that, you know, the mild winter, the one before, that they cut the sleeves off, and your wife kindly done that for us, but I think their shout was in the middle of January, can we have the sleeves back on? It was probably a bit too late by that, so I'll be guided by the players on that. I don't
they have underarms, you cut them off and they put underarms on.
You know what would be happening?
Roll them up.
The reserves would be asking to be all stitched back on again, so I hope she's kept that.
Well, a lot of clubs do. Well, I see the Premiership do it. They have the short sleeves, and then they have, I don't know, like just sleeves of the colour of the shirt. They're going to please themselves.
The undershirts that were the same colour.
You don't need long sleeves if you're working hard enough, do you?
Well, that's right.
Girly vests, as we call them up north. Girly vests.
Sorry?
Probably don't allow them to wear gloves.
Gloves, one or two that do, yeah.
Sissy. Very sissy.
Don't forget, Steve, I want Jason nice and bright this year.
Tell him that.
That's
right. I have told him. You don't like pink.
So fussy.
I know a few years ago we were in trouble with the VAT people. Are you able to comment on the situation of the club at the present moment? Are we okay?
Ken's a better one to answer that.
Specifically VAT or tax?
Well, no, just overall. I mean, is the VAT paid off or what?
Yeah, we don't owe HMRC anything on the VAT. To be fair, you're not really allowed to. I don't know how we got away with it the last time. Other debts to HMRC, we have got, like most companies, we've slightly underpaid our PAYE and national insurance contributions. That comes home to roost when you do your annual return in July and start chasing for it. But we know exactly how much it is, and we know what we're going to do about it. So we're fairly healthy as far as HMRC is concerned.
That's good.
Just to elaborate on that, what happens with, and we are a limited company, what happens with the business is you don't actually know how much you're meant to have paid until April. I mean, it is changed slightly now.
Well, they don't know.
They don't, sorry, yeah. Yeah. To be fair, Jeff Maxton, who's not here, so you obviously pay what you can afford as you're going along. That has changed now, though, isn't it, with real-time information. You may have heard of that about in the news. So we effectively have to pay HMRC now within 2 weeks. Is it 4 months?
It's basically the current situation is you tell HMRC at the end of the financial year how much you've paid for your employees, and therefore how much PAYE and NI, national insurance you're due. And then they match it up against how much you've paid throughout the year, and they say, you owe us this much. We've changed the system this year, whereas now you don't wait until the end of the year to tell them. every time you pay anybody, anywhere in this country, every time you pay anybody, you've got to submit a return to HMRC. They will know immediately how much PAYE you owe them. Whether they insist on you paying it immediately, I don't know. But, they probably will. If I was them, I would. So it means that we won't be able to get behind as we have in the past in the future.
Just on the subject of finance, I think credit to Ken. Ken does a budget for everything, and we haven't necessarily always had that with the club. And it's, I'm not saying it has made us any better off, but what it's allowed us to do is look into the future a little bit. We can kind of see if based on the we can see. It depends on what you take on a weekend or whatever, but generally speaking, we are looking 3 months down the line at our budgets, and providing we are achieving a similar income to the previous year, because all the budgets will be based on the previous year, we can see it in 2, 3, 4, even 6 months' time, I guess. What, you know, we already know when we're going to be short of money, basically speaking, don't we? So that's something that Ken's worked really hard on, and I don't even want to think how long it must have taken him to do it. I've just replied to his emails going, yes, thanks, Ken.
So there's a lot of thought.
So from that perspective, there's a lot of credit goes to Ken there, where you know, I think we you know, I've come back from that top meeting and I rung you straight away, didn't I? And I went, do you know what, Ken? We need to be so careful, because you know what, and I've only been here 8 years, but I used to go to Tottenham and think what a well-run club they were. They had a fantastic committee, and I think it was quite an old committee probably, and that's maybe what's happened. I think a lot of people have maybe stood down over those sort of over the last 5 years, and they've just clearly not had any budgeting or any plans in place, and we have now. And I'm not saying that anything was wrong in the past. The difference now is from a business perspective, and that's effectively what we are. As much as we love the football, if we are a business and we have to pay our bills, whether it's to the players or the brewery or HMRC or whoever, we're in a position now where we know what we've got to achieve 2, 3, 4, even 6 months down the line. So from a financial point of view, we're by no means rich, but at least we know when we're going to need the money
how
for.
poor we are.
Or how poor we are. Yeah.
So we still
You know what it takes to be rich.
Obviously we're all volunteers, but we're not quite a non-profit making organisation in the sense of the word, but that's effectively what we are. So
we've still got the same coach company?
I'm not sure if they've come back to us.
I haven't yet, not yet, but I think we'll still be using Damery for next season. Yeah.
Is it worth mentioning a bit about what happened last week? Because Graham was brought on board, wasn't he?
Certainly, yeah, I was going to mention that. I've been doing the match programme for the last 13 years. This season, Graham, some of you'll know, Graham Dunn, hiding there in the corner. Graham's taken over the onerous role. I sold it to him by telling him it takes about 20 minutes a week. So I'm sure he'll be looking for help. I mean, that's one of the things that over the last 15 years I've been desperate for more people to contribute things to the programme. Graham's your man. Please get involved. Thanks, Graham.
That's a big job.
It's a big job.
No, it was good last week though, wasn't it? All the things that were happening and potentially happening.
Yeah, we had a meeting last week. Again, some of you were here, some not. It was really just about volunteering and helping the club. As we mentioned earlier, there's 25 or 30 volunteers on match day. Other things that go on, quite notably, I'm sure again people that live very locally would know that there's a lot more goes on at the club now in terms of not quite festivals, but certainly weekend events. We were the official campsite for the folk festival this year. We had the V-Dub at the pub, which has been going on for about 4 years now. I'm not sure we've had the Joe Levin event yet, but we've still got that to come. There's just lots of biggish events that, to be fair to Matt, is a lot for him to deal with in terms of getting people to help, etc., etc. So we've been fortunate enough that 2 or 3 people have put their names forward, and they're going to kind of liaise with Matt in terms of helping generate personnel to help with the events, plan the events, the sportsman's dinner. I think we must have had, Tony probably tell you, how many people do we have working on the start of the sportsman's dinner? 40 to 50 people. It was a huge event. I mean, we actually just had a holiday, probably needed it, I would guess, because May was horrendously busy. So fortunately we've got someone on the case there now. They'll liaise with us and they'll liaise with Matt in terms of helping get those things going. And it's becoming a much more important part of the football club, again, in terms of generating funds that enable this club to go forward and sign players like Mark Gagnon. That's what it boils down to at the end of the day.
We can't overemphasise how important this place is to this football club. I won't give you actual figures, but in terms of the revenue that we generate from this place is probably 3 times what we generate from gate receipts throughout the whole season. This club will be successful off the playing field purely because of the success of this club and the functions that we can attract to it. So, you know, you can do your bit by any of your friends, your family who want to have a function. This should be the place to come. We need the business, and it's free.
Free venue.
Yeah.
We just need to keep Matt busy.
Yeah. Pretending not to
That is
listen.
definitely on here.
With regard to the outdoor events, you know, fun festivals, schooner festival, all that sort of thing, if they're going to have loud music going on late into the evening, is there not any danger though of the residents, and well, particularly the hospital, who could pull strings that would get it stopped? I mean, there's no point in winding it up in the first place to see what happens. You're better off saying finish it at 10:30 or whatever. You know?
Well, we do exactly that, not quite 10:30, but Matt works closely with the licensing people at East Dorset District Council. We're part of, there's a group, I can't remember what it's called now. Matt, what's the group you belong to with the licensees in Wimborne?
The licensing committee.
Licensing committee. So Matt works closely with the licensing people, especially the lady that's in charge of the. And every event that we've had has actually had a cut-off point of 11:30, and Matt's been pretty strict on that. And I think how many events have we had that have had to go to outdoor events? It's only 3 actually this year.
Yeah, we've had 3 with temporary events licenses.
So it's not much, but we are looking in, or Matt's looking into extending that licence to a 10. Is it called a 10s licence?
No, it's we're a premises licence for the bottom field. Right at the moment, we're running our events, our outside events, on a temporary events notice, which kind of limits us, especially on numbers.
Yeah.
But if we go for the premises licence, then we can have much larger events, and it'll give us a lot more freedom. And more events mean more people means more money, obviously. So.
We've also done noise controls. So they go. Well, Tony was involved in that, weren't you? Where we actually go and do a noise test. And this year, am I right in saying we didn't have any complaints this year?
No, there was no complaints.
No complaints. So that's the Wurzels, the Folk Festival. There wasn't any music here anyway. What was the other event we had down the bottom?
We've had 2. We've got a new festival this year.
Pub,
VW at the pub, and we also had the Gunstone Gathering down there, which is a new event.
We have had no complaints at all. So I think the key thing there is, if we work closely with the licensing people, I mean, we're conscious of never overstepping the mark, but I think maybe we're looking at, instead of 4 events, we might just try and group that to 6 next year, if we don't get any complaints. But they're knocking on the door the minute where there's a complaint, so we're on the, Matt's on the.
There was one last year, I don't know whether you were aware of it, when we were doing the sportsman's dinner.
Yeah.
And they were complaining from over there about them making the speeches.
Yeah. Well, it was awful, that's why, to be honest with you.
Oh, yes.
That's the bottom line. And it just seemed to be excessively loud for some reason.
Weird.
I don't know, but the comedian.
It's them, they're the ones that.
Well, I think Matt liaises with all the neighbours and he talks to them, and they've been pretty good this year, Matt, haven't they?
Yeah.
So again, we're really conscious of that. The last thing we want to do is upset our neighbours because you're just on a time bomb then. Eventually they'll stop you from doing stuff. So we want to try and get people like that on board, and I think this year we have done, haven't we?
We've sent out letters. We've gone round. I mean, Tony Smith's gone round and knocked on doors. And it just shows. It just shows we're trying to work with these people.
Within reason, we do whatever we can, really, without taking.
Yeah. I mean, if you if you know the second time, if they crib the first time and then there's the next event, regardless of what it is, they're bound to sort of stick the knife in.
I think
That's
you're
human
absolutely
nature.
right. I think if it goes on past midnight, I think people think that there's a point that's far too late. 11:30 is probably the latest we would want to even get away with, really, to be honest with you. But if someone's coming out to an event like the Wurzels, for example, they kind of expect to be here till 11:30, I think. So 10:30.
No, I just use that as a figure of speech.
We are just.
But
sorry.
It's crucial, this noise thing, isn't it? Because I well, you know, not, but I used to do a lot of DJing, and I used to DJ in I'll tell you, the pub is the Horns at Colham, and they used to do, I don't know what they still do, but they did marquees with weddings and so on, and you had to keep the noise down very, and they were on the last warning, and the noise police from East Dorset would come round and do checks while you're playing, and they were told, if there's one more complaint, you will lose your licence. I mean, it's a nasty thing to get on the wrong side of them, isn't it?
We're just exploring about having a party on the pitch next season, but that'll be a daytime thing, and something like that probably would finish at 10 o'clock. So that's the type of event that we think. At the end of the day, our biggest asset is the land that we're sat in, really. So hopefully we'll be on the case for that shortly. Anything else?
How did the match come out when we played Arsenal?
In terms of?
I thought it was a cracking night, personally.
Yeah, it's always a good night if there's lots of people, isn't there? So, I mean, obviously we had quite a lot of people here, but it's quite an expensive event to put on. And obviously, when I say that, I mean, at the end of the day, it was a charity event that was there to benefit the football club and the two players, Andy Culliford and what's his name, Kevin James. So, but yeah, I mean, it was a good night. The bar was really busy. I think it's good for the kudos of the football club to have such a big club like Arsenal playing here. I think probably, I was going to say young supporters coming to actually support Arsenal. And for me, that's
They coming here for the first time. We had 700 people here, and a good proportion of them might not have been here before. With a bit of luck, will come again.
Why I asked was, you know, I was there selling the programmes, and people from Arsenal, you know, they were coming up and saying, "What a friendly club."
Yeah, really. Well, that's, you know, we are, to be honest with you. Everyone, it costs nothing actually to be polite to people, and I think everyone would agree that everyone involved in this football club meets and greets and makes an effort to speak to people. Why wouldn't you want to do that? I mean, you're absolutely right. We go to a lot of clubs and they couldn't be any more unfriendly, to be honest with you. You just think, why would you be like that? Well, I think that's what makes this club special, to be honest with you. It's the supporters, the people that all help organise it, you know, the volunteers, the tea ladies, the people behind the bar. It's just a nice place to be, to be honest with you. Trust me, I spend a lot of time here. But yeah, it's a really good day and a really good effort for the football club. And thanks to Brian for organising. Anyone else at all?
I did think about sort of like setting up a supporters association, but if anyone's interested, that sort of
Like the last one.
I don't know, I wasn't there.
We're just glad to see you've got a friendly agreement.
Do you know what? It's not something that we're not opposed to. At the end of the day, whatever anyone wants to do is going to be for benefit to the football club. That is the bottom line. But the key thing, what I've said there, is it's got to be for benefit to the football club. And unfortunately, last time, for whatever reasons, it just didn't quite gel and it didn't really work. But it doesn't necessarily need to be in the guise of a supporters club or a supporters association. At the end of the day, if someone's got an idea and they want to implement that idea, they can do it off their own backs. They don't necessarily need to have a group of people to do it. For obvious reasons, we welcome anything like that.
Just next week, when they come back, is it Monday? I'll be here with camera, and if you want to go on Facebook, then I'll be. And it won't just be the one night I'll be doing, but you'll see the players going through their paces. If you want to see them sweating their bits off and.
Yeah. You still go for Vine Hill, do you? Start off.
Oh, no, it's changed over the years a little bit now. They work a lot with the football, but they do work hard. They do work But again, credit to the players, they will come back in a decent shape. And, you know, I think years gone by that again players would have the summer and come back out of shape. But I know I've been speaking to a few of the boys, they're already doing training and there, so you know, hopefully they come back in a good shape again and hit the ground running on Monday night. It'd be good to see the pictures.
Oh.
Yeah.
When's Storko expected back?
Just got married, he's on honeymoon, so he's going to be involved.
He'll be knackered for Monday then.
He's going to be involved in the Bournemouth game. Back for that.
I didn't mind introduce, get up at 6 in the morning for runs while he's
he's on his training.
That's clear. Steve Down, a good player.
So all the new signings will be about Monday then? All the new boys on the block?
Apart from James.
Apart from James, yeah.
Will we still using a generator next year for training?
Well, we were
crossed.
promised electric down there by the people that were, I don't know if people noticed, but there was a contractor renting a little bit of space down behind the main stand. And the guy that we kind of done that, negotiated that with, agreed as part of the rent that they would put an armoured cabling down to those bottom lights. Unfortunately, he's not with them anymore. So I've actually had the conversation this week with the contractor, and along the lines of, are you going to do it, or do we have to re-invoice you for the difference? So I'm speaking to them again tomorrow, and I think they've contacted you, haven't they? Which has prompted that. Me ringing them has prompted. They only want a copy of this.
I know they do, yeah.
So so I think it would be fair to say that if they don't do the job and they pay us the additional rent that they would have had to pay down the bottom, then that money would go towards putting the electric to those lights, because trust me, that was the bane of my life.
Yeah, I mean,
it just, people just don't know how to use
some days it worked and some days it wouldn't.
I know, yeah. People think if they keep turning the key, it miraculously go, even though there's no battery life. Yeah, so I'll be doing everything I can to prevent getting 10 phone calls a week because the generator hasn't started. Okay. If no one's got anything else, just quickly to remind you, obviously first friendly's a week Saturday, believe it or not. And if anyone's available to help out with a paintbrush or anything, even if they go around getting rid of rubbish and picking rubbish up and doing, I'll confirm, for those that are interested, I'll confirm whether that's going to be Saturday or Sunday, but if we could get a dozen people together to do that, that'd be fantastic. I think I'll be here, so. Might bring the kids with me. Well, thanks ever so much everyone for attending as well. We look forward to a successful season.